along with Emily Kestelut. Emily and Rosalie, they were sisters, and they were both in the same grade, graduated together. And Rosalie was just a super intelligent gal. Well, Emily was too, but Rosalie, it just seemed as though she and my other classmate, Joe Rubenap, they were always in competition, you know, who got the best grades and that type of thing. They both married and had large families and are wonderful mothers and grandmothers.
Okay, Rosalie Kestelut and I were very good friends in school. Did a lot of our schoolwork together. In fact, I credit her with helping me getting through school. A little side tip, she talked me into asking my wife to marry me. She suggested it. I thought it wasn't a bad idea.
Yeah, you talked into it, huh?
Yeah, wasn't a bad idea, so.
Arlo Anderson. We knew Arlo as Joe. He was just, I didn't know him really well. He was a lot of fun, but we knew him as Joe. He still lives in the area. He was a very dear friend. He was there were a lot of Rogans in New Haven, and he was one of the many Rogans. Excellent athlete, and we loved his smile. He smiled a lot and always made you feel really comfortable. Andy Schultz, he was my first husband's brother, and he too was on the top of the list of intellects in our class. He was a lot of fun. Ruth and I were good friends. We also went to Sunday school together in church, and she was from the country, and just a very, very nice girl.
And then you took Ruth to the senior prom or something?
Yeah, I dated her once or twice, but I really wasn't going to get into that because I thought it was probably bad politically here.
Well, I was sick, so you took her because I was sick and couldn't go.
Of course, Joyce Cooper, my very best friend since the 7th grade. And she married Jim Wood. Joyce came in when she was in the 2nd grade, and we didn't ever separate. We were just always, we did everything together. Our home ec teacher, Mrs. Seifert, told us one time, when Joyce and I got married, Joyce and Joni Tesh and I got married, that we probably would need the other 2 people to help us bake a pie, because in home ec it took 3 of us to bake the pie, and that was always a fun thing. Joyce was a cheerleader along with me. We cheered for 4 years. We played basketball for 4 years. We were in all the class plays. We were in the band together. I played the clarinet, she played the trombone, and we were in the chorus, and whatever there was to do, Joyce and I always did it together. Dennis Schroeder, I think Dennis was our class president. Dennis was a very quiet young man. He played basketball also. He became a state trooper, and I think he retired in Florida eventually. But he was a good football player. And John Bailey, he was from Mount Clemens, and John came in, I think, in about the 10th grade, and he married my best friend, Joni Tesh. I was in their wedding, and John, I believe he played football. He was a very good football player. And he liked New Haven. Coming in the 10th or 11th grade, he fit in quite well.
Well, Lois and I lived 1 block apart. I lived on Ann Street, and she lived on Division Street. And obviously a classmate. She was very, very active, and consequently been throughout the years one of both Fran's and my best friends.
Joe became very successful. He was a head electrician at the New Haven Foundry, and he did go into the service right after graduation, and very, very smart guy. Jerry Pollard, oh gosh, he was a dream boy in school. Everybody loved Jerry, good looking and tall and blonde, and he played basketball and football, and he eventually ended up working for the Detroit Edison Company and became quite successful. Grace Avent was one of my very best friends. She's passed on. She was always very tall. I mean, she was a very tall person, and she was just a fun person to be with.
Yeah, we were buddies ever since we were old enough to be buddies. We went to school at Harris School for the first 8 years, and then we went to high school. She was in Joe's grade, so she was a year ahead of me. But we were best friends forever. She passed away almost 3 years ago.
Marion Heinrich was a very quiet young lady, very intelligent. She now lives in Chicago, and she became, I think she worked for one of the airlines and had a really, really good job with them. Marion came from a large family. Marion and I went to the same church and went to Sunday school together. and she too was very quiet. Alvin McClellan, he was a good football player. Dear Al, Al's passed away too. And he was quiet, but he was one of the guys, and the guys always really enjoyed each other, along with Tim McInnes. Tim was also a football player, and I think Tim played basketball too. And we were all in the class plays. That's when we had the most fun, when we were in the class plays. We always had a junior play and a senior play. And we rehearsed a long time for those plays, but when we performed them, they were really good. Pat Saunders, she was one of the big six, I guess you would call us. Pat was a very wonderful athlete. She played basketball just really great. She was a forward and played really, really well. In those days, the girls' basketball had 6 players, 3 forwards and 3 guards, and you never went over the center line. I don't know if people would remember that or not, but she was an excellent forward. And she and Donna Will and I had an orchestra in high school. Pat played the drums, and Donna Will played the clarinet, and I played the piano.
Stanley Bursch, more of a quieter person. The biggest thing I remember of him, of anything, his dad was a professional wrestler. Oh, I don't know how many times, but on occasion they had wrestling matches at the school, and professional wrestling matches that were paid for attendance, and his dad participated.
Stanley Bursch, he was a wrestler. I think he played football also. He was more of a quiet young man, but we really enjoyed our friendship too. He was a really neat guy. Charlie Eli, I haven't seen him. I think he's passed away. We haven't heard too much about Charlie. He came too later in the high school years, and he played basketball. He was tall. He was a very good basketball player. Mary Weber, she married Bruce Jones, and Mary came to New Haven a little bit later in school. A lot of these kids grew up in New Haven from day one, but Mary was just kind of a later in life. She and her sister came, and Mary was a real good friend, and still is now. She's living in the North Country now. And Joni Tesh, that's another gal. She was married to John Bailey right out of high school, and she played in the band. I think Joni played the trumpet. Joni wasn't a cheerleader, but she did play basketball. Excellent basketball player, and she was a librarian, and she was on the staff for the yearbook, the Rockette, and she lived quite close to me. I lived on Division Street, and she lived on Main Street next to where the funeral home is now, and so we were buddies our whole life, and still are very good friends. But she was a lot of fun in high school too. Joni always, when something new in fashion came out, Joni had it. She had the first long skirt, she had the first blouse with the frills, whatever. Very high style. We loved Joni.
No, I'd call her bubbly and always got something to say, always willing to speak out, and just a real happy person most of the time.
Mary Baltera, she was a stitch. She was so funny. She was just always full of laughs and just a very, very nice person. Cordelia Parham, oh dear Cordelia. She had one of the most beautiful voices of anybody you'd ever want to hear. For one of our musical programs, she sang the song Chloe, which was, you just tingled from head to foot because she just had one of those contralto voices that was just beautiful. Mrs. Harley was our Glee Club teacher, and when Cordelia came into the school, because she wasn't there, I think just the last few years, she certainly welcomed her into the chorus because she had such a wonderful voice. Chester Sosha. Chester was a neat guy too. He played in all the athletics, and he was in the plays. Very nice young man. Carolyn Tax. She was one of my best friends, and she was one of those gals in that home ec class that we didn't think we could ever cook or bake or sew without each other. And Carolyn died at an early age. She was about 35, and she had a heart attack and passed away. She was at my wedding. We were very good friends, and she was a great gal.
She was another one that just went to high school. She went to the country school,
And then transferred.
Oh, the other side of New Haven, yeah. And she was another happy girl all the time.
Lorraine Friday, what fun Lorraine was. Lorraine was from the country, so she came in on the bus. And she wasn't as active in some of the things that we girls that lived in town were, simply because she always had to take the bus home. You know how that was, you had basketball practice after school and that type of thing. But she's certainly a lovely lady.